My name is Jeanette Gutierrez, born and raised in New York. And fortunately and unfortunately, I hold the title of 9/11 survivor. Not something I usually use to introduce myself. For this case, yes, right? On September 11th, I was at my desk at 8:46 when the first plane hit. I was not in the World Trade Center. I was across the street from One World Trade in an office building on West Street on the 16th floor. So when the first plane hit, I heard and I felt some kind of vibration in my skin, like my body, the desk didn't shake or anything like that, like an earthquake. But it was weird. It was a strange noise and a strange feeling. I didn't know what it was, and it really didn't matter. It's not gunshots, so it doesn't matter, New York City. But then my desk faced north, so if I looked to the right, there was a window, but not close to me. Many desks down. That's the window that faced One World Trade, or the North Tower. And I saw something really large fly by the window, like fall. And I thought that was weird because birds don't fly that way, and it was bigger than a bird. So I became like a little nosy, and I looked out the window, and I didn't look down, I looked up because it came from up. So I was like, what is that? And that's when I saw the World Trade Center in flames and, black smoke, big hole like you see in any documentary. And I ran back to my desk and called my older sister, who works for the government. And she also works downtown, but not in the immediate area. And I said, Gail, the World Trade Center is messed up. Like something's going on over there. I don't know what. And she said, all right, let me find out and I'll call you back. So she called me back quickly. Like I didn't wait long at all. And she said it was a small plane that hit the World Trade Center. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird because the sky was blue, 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 not a cloud. I remember it like if it was yesterday. Such a perfect day that aviation personnel call it severe clear, which means you could see forever. So how could a pilot not see these two tall buildings sticking out of the ground from lower Manhattan? And I figured maybe he had a heart attack, he or she had a heart attack or a stroke or something. I said a prayer and I went back to work. And then 17 minutes later, and I only know this now, a lot of what I'm saying, I only know after the fact. I couldn't tell you if it was 4 minutes or 40 minutes after, but 17 minutes later, the South Tower was struck. But I didn't know, I didn't hear it, I didn't feel it, nothing. My sister called me and said, 2 World Trade just got hit by another plane. You should leave. And I was like, that's not 2 World Trade, it's 1 World Trade. I see it. She said, no, a different plane. And in my head, I'm like, 2 pilots had strokes? Like what, how could that be? My sister is a very calm person, not like me. She's not extremely emotional. Like I cry for everything. When I'm happy, I'm very happy. When I'm sad, I'm very sad. She's much more controlled. And she was not excited when she spoke to me. She was not anxious, nothing. She was just matter of fact. You should leave. You should get out of there. And no, they told me over the loudspeaker to stay here. And that made sense to me because whatever was going on outside was outside. I was at my desk. I was safe. And instantly after the first plane hit, sirens were going off. And I hear that all the time, even here in my house in New York. I hear sirens all the time. I never run outside to see what it is, unless they're stopping in front of my house. Like you hear it all the time. So I said, oh, whatever's going on out there, they're taking care of it. And I'm not going to be a part of that. I'll stay at my desk. She continued to insist, which my sister's also not like that. She's very easygoing. She continued to insist. And when I kept saying no, she said, all right, we will meet and we will leave together. Now that made sense to me. So I said, okay. We picked a place to meet, and I left my office, but with no rush at all. Like, I locked my desk, I, logged off my computer. I still have no idea what's going on. I have not put two and two together like most everybody by that time, right? I had no TV, no Google, like we didn't have all this stuff that pops up everywhere. I mean, Google existed, but you didn't just put something in, breaking news, and it was there. And I had logged off my computer and I was leaving. I went down to the gym. I got my sneakers because I had heels on. No rush, just intent. So I wasn't, there's no such thing as a slow New Yorker. We move at a fast speed when we have nowhere to go. So I had some place to be. So I was moving with purpose, but I wasn't scared. I didn't know what was going on, but I wasn't scared for me until I got to the lobby of my building, and it was filled with a bunch of people who I knew didn't belong there. Like, I work in an office building. All the men have suits, all the women are dressed sharply, and the lobby doesn't have any chairs or benches or anything. It's a beautiful big lobby, marble, with no place to hang out. You don't stay in the lobby, you walk through the lobby. But there were people sitting on the floor, there were people bleeding, there was EMTs there, and I was like, holy mackerel, there's some stuff going on down here that I'm not aware of. I'm going right back upstairs where I'm safe. But my sister was already on her way, and my cell phone was in my car under the seat at home in Staten Island. So I couldn't get in touch with her. So I said, I'm just gonna keep going. And when I left the office building, I made my way to our meeting place, which is a little north of the World Trade Center, zigzagging my way through the streets, but with a vision, like, the things that the horses wear, the blinders, so they don't see on the side, they just see ahead of them. That's what I had. I had a straight vision of where I need to go and who I need to meet. I did not pay attention to what was going on around me. And I now know that's because I knew I wouldn't be able to handle it. I wouldn't have been able to function if I really knew that we were under attack, that I could die, and that the world was going through what it was going through. Like, I do remember at one point seeing a group of people looking up at the World Trade Center, and I said to myself, don't you have like somebody to meet or someplace to go? Like, why are you just looking up there? And I made the mistake of looking up. I'm fortunate to be able to say that this is the awfulest, the worst part of my 9/11 story, which is nothing compared to so many people. But when I looked up, it was awful. It was awful. You don't need to see other human beings in that space of between life and death. It was not good. And I knew that I needed not to look anymore, and I could not look again. So I turned my back to the tower and I said a prayer, and I said, I just have to meet Gail. Just have to meet Gail. That's what I have to do. I have to meet Gail. And I kept saying that over and over in my head so that that vision wouldn't take over. And when I finally got to the corner where I was going to meet my sister, there were hundreds of people walking north on Broadway. And there she was on the side street with her friend Rebecca. And I was so relieved to see her. But the moment that I saw her, the thought that had been filling my mind, meet Gail, was gone, because I met Gail. And then all the other things flooded into my head, and I was like, where somebody's trying to kill us? I could die today. Why? There's dead people everywhere. Like, it was really not, it was too much for me to handle, and I was hysterical. So my sister let me cry. She hugged me, She let me cry for just a few seconds, not long enough if you ask me. And she pushed me away and said, "We need to leave now." And I was just like, "Well, okay." And I thought she was being a little rude at the time. It didn't cross my mind that she was saving my life at that moment. But she was. And we walked north all the way up to like 23rd Street. No, 23rd Street, something like that. And we finally got a cab to 34th Street to a friend's house. And that's when I saw everything that happened. I didn't know the towers collapsed. I didn't know the Pentagon was hit. I didn't know anything like that. So a third of the world was watching that morning and watching it as it was happening. They watched 2,000, almost 3,000 people get killed live. Not me. I was very lucky. I watched it, but I watched it after the fact. And there's something to say about watching something live and knowing that it's happening the moment you're watching it, as opposed to watching it recorded, even if it was recorded just a few hours before. I didn't experience any of that. So as a 9/11 survivor, I actually experienced less than somebody, say, in Israel or in Chicago or in Australia, who was watching when the second plane hit, or who was watching when the towers collapsed at 9:59 and 10:28. All of those times, I was busy walking away, getting away from it. So I am definitely luckier than most people and luckier than most survivors. And I know that. We finally got home that night just because we decided to try to get a bus home. So I live on Staten Island, which is an island south of Manhattan Island. The only way to get on the island is by boat or by something with wheels. You can't take a train. You have to go over a bridge or on a boat. There's no tunnel. And so, the bridges were closed that day for a long time. We waited until they opened the Verrazano Bridge, and we tried to make our way to at least Brooklyn, where we were both raised. And we found a bus that was going to Staten Island. It took a really long time to get there because they had to go all the way around and through, but we got home that night. My sister has 3 kids and she's married, and I don't have children and I lived alone. So when we got to her house, hugged the kids, and I forgot to tell you this part, they all knew we were okay right away because my sister had a Nextel phone, which is a kind of phone that works off of like a CB radio, like a walkie-talkie. So with the family members, my niece and my brother-in-law, they all had the same phone, and they didn't have to dial to call each other. They just pressed a button, kind of like the police do, and it goes boop boop, and then you talk, and you talk over those radio waves. Now, I'm not an engineer or anybody who knows that stuff, but I know that right after the first plane hit, the telephone lines were very busy. When the North Tower collapsed, there was no cell service because of the antenna on top of the World Trade Center. So you could not use your cell phone. My sister could use hers because she wasn't using that frequency. So my family was only worried about me the moment from when I left my office till I met my sister, which was less than 15 minutes. After that, they always knew where we were. They knew we were not near the towers when they collapsed because my sister was constantly in touch with them. And my sister is a hero to many other people too, not just myself. She would see somebody frantically dialing to try to reach their loved one, and she would just say, "Tell me the number. I'll call my daughter. My daughter will call your family from home on the landline," because landlines were working, even if they were busy. So she would boop, boop, and tell my niece Desiree or my brother-in-law Guy, call this number and say that Joanne is on the corner of whatever, wherever we were, and she's heading to New Jersey. So those families who received those calls from my family didn't have that anxiety of, were they there? Where are they? Are they hurt? Are they dead? And my sister did that until her battery died. And my whole family knew we were on our way to our friend's house on 34th Street. And of course, they were watching TV. They could tell nothing happened to the Empire State Building or anything. By the time we got there and watched TV, we knew then everything that happened. Like I said, we ended up going home, and my sister wanted me to stay at her house. And I was like, I'm pretty much done with you. I want to go home to my own, my own space. And I did go home, and I watched TV like a third of the world was doing. And that's when I realized that not all heroes wear uniforms. I mean, there were people helping other people. There was no religion, there was no race, there was no, you're a boss and I'm a secretary. Everybody was just helping everybody. And New Yorkers don't have a really good reputation for being kind or courteous. I always say it's just because we're busy. I'm not rude, I'm just busy. And I want to get to where I'm going because there's a time frame involved. My train is leaving at 10 o'clock or whatever. I don't consider myself an unkind person. If you stop me in the street and ask me for directions, I'm going to help you. I was a Girl Scout till I was 17. Like, my mother raised me right. But if I see you on the street looking like you're lost, good luck, because I'm going to catch my train. But that day, everybody had time for everybody. And I realized that I could have died that day. Like, on the day I realized I could be dead. I could have stayed in my office. I could have, or I could have left later and been stuck in that and been hit on the head by something or someone, or so many things could have happened to me. Or my sister, who was coming towards what everyone was running away from to make sure that I got out, she could have been killed and I could have survived. Like that, how would I have lived my life then? So I went to bed very grateful that night, but very, very scared, very scared. And to fast forward, my company moved Midtown. I never went downtown again for many, many years. I had no reason to, and I didn't want to. My sister had to go right back to work because she had, secret squirrel clearance, whatever. And I just actually watched a documentary this year about the 23rd Street garage where the FBI and the CIA and all these lettered agencies worked together after 9/11, and that's where she was. But she could never tell us. She couldn't tell us for a very long time because, I don't know, but government secret like. So every day my sister left for work, we didn't know where she was going. And every day after 9/11, everybody was watching the skies thinking, what else is going to happen? And if something happened, we didn't know where she was because she couldn't tell us. So it was not a good time after 9/11. It was not for me. I didn't handle it well. And I kind of put the experience and everything that went with it in a box and hid it in the back of my brain, and had a really big lock on it, and I never opened it up. I don't even know if I ever watched anything on 9/11. I didn't watch the news. I have no recollection of any kind of after 9/11 talks or conversations, nothing. And there are things about that day that they're not clear to me. And I don't want them to be clear. If they're not clear now, after 20 years, I don't need to know what it is. Like, leave it alone. But in 2010, I got a new job in the building right next door to the building I was in on 9/11. Back downtown, which I really didn't want to be there, but it was a good job. It was a good job with a lot of money. So I was like, all right, you could do this, Jeanette. You talk to yourself, you could do this. And it was the turning moment, the 360 moment, turned completely around my 9/11 life. Because prior to working downtown, I never even thought about 9/11. I didn't give it the time of day. I just didn't want to, and I couldn't. I had gone to one therapy session that I was not pleased with. I didn't, the therapist just didn't get it. So I never talked to my sister about it ever. The only thing I've done every single 9/11 at 8:46 a.m. is I call my sister. And I tell her I love her. And I say, thank you for saving my life. She says she loves me. I hang up because we're both crying. So we don't talk. We just, that's all I say. There's nothing else, no conversation. And then maybe the next day we'll say like, well, what did you do? But for those 9 years, it was just the conversation. And then when I moved downtown, I saw the plaza being built, the 9/11 plaza, the pools, and new One World Trade going up. And that made me happy that they were making something there. But I was uncomfortable there. I was uncomfortable taking the escalator I took that day. It was the same space. And I didn't like it. And I doubted my decision to get this new job, but here I am. And I saw a tour going through my building in the lobby where because the plaza wasn't open yet, and I heard this woman talking about, you know, the numbers and 9/11 and what happened to her. And it was an interesting, you know, I was one of those people that didn't pay for the tour but listen. And I asked one of the guests, what is this? And they said it was the 9/11 Tribute Museum. So I said, oh, I'm going to Google that. And I did. And I thought, oh, I think I'm going to go on a tour. And I'm a tourist at heart. I can't even tell you how many times I've been to the Statue of Liberty. You know, like even though I'm a New Yorker, I do all the New York stuff. I love travel and I love tours. So I went on the tour with my niece, Desiree. And the tour guide's name was also Desiree. And she took us through my building because you could see the plaza through my building and in the lobby. And she told us her 9/11 story. And it was tragic, tragic, terrible. She was in the South Tower and her boss got everybody to leave, and her boss went to check, make sure he got everybody out, and he was killed. And she talked about, his name is Jim Berger. She talked about him. She cried. I cried. It was awful. And I thought to myself, why does this lady do this? She's nuts. And after the tour, I told her, thank you so much for sharing, you know, all of the information. But why do you do this? She said, believe it or not, it's good for me. I couldn't imagine why. And, you know, I told her that I worked in this building, and she said, oh, you should do it too. I'm a secretary, not a tour guide. I have a job, thank you. And she's like, no, it's volunteer and you do it whenever you can. And I went home and I talked to my mom about it, and I volunteer. I am a volunteer at heart. At that time, I was a volunteer with Honor Flight, you know, taking World War II vets to their memorial. And actually, I hadn't started that yet. That was 10 years later. But I do a lot of volunteer work. You know, when you're not married and you don't have children, you make your life your social life. And I kept busy with volunteering. So I said, maybe I could do this. And I went down to make inquiries, and to be a volunteer at this museum, to be a tour guide, you have to belong to one of 5 groups: a survivor, first responder, lost a loved one, worked on the pile for 9 months, or lived in the area. So if you take a tour with the 9/11 Tribute Museum, you get a tour guide who has a 9/11 story, person to person. So I said, okay, I'll try it. I did the training. They helped me put together my 9/11 story, which I told you earlier. There's much more to that story, of course, than one can sit and speak about at one time. But they helped me put it together in a way that makes sense to people who are not from New York, and to cut out all the little stuff that may be important but is not key to the story, to my story. And just like that, I became a tour guide. And just like that, I was getting therapy every time I did a tour. This right here is therapy. I don't need to go see a therapist. It's therapy for me to talk about it, and it feels so wonderful to be involved in an organization where other people understand what I feel like, and And don't look at me like, are you still crying over something that happened 20 years ago? Or why do you get so upset? Nobody says that. They get it. And there's something to be said to be in a space with people that share and understand your feelings. And so I've been a tour guide for 11 years now. And every time I do a tour, I meet somebody who didn't know something that I'm saying besides my story. And part of this therapy that I'll call the 9/11 Tribute Museum is being in touch with your feelings and understanding yourself, your 9/11 self, which I had locked up for many years. And I realized that I had some survivor guilt, and it was attached to the fact that I am not a mother, and so many mothers were killed that morning. And not that I don't think my mother or my sister or my sister's kids or my brother or his kids would have missed me. I would have been missed. I am loved, but why did I survive and not a mother who could raise her child? There's a child out there, many children without their mothers because of 9/11. You know, why am I here and they're not? So it is my desire to make those mothers in heaven proud that I survived. I try hard. Why did I do this without a tissue? I try really hard to make them proud. And through the 9/11 Tribute Museum, I started going to Japan after 3/11, which happened in 2012, big tsunami and earthquake and nuclear disaster, to actually just be present with the people who went through that, because people who go through tragedy like this, I know for firsthand that you need to be with people who get you, who understand you. So we went there just to say, you know, yeah, this sucks. Because what could we say, right? And we could share our stories, and we could tell, each of us have our own way of dealing with what happened to us that day and the days and the months that followed. And even though there was a language barrier, even though there's a cultural difference, we know that we helped them deal with what happened. And they most certainly helped us. We didn't expect to be helped. We expected to be the helpers, but we left there feeling so useful because of this tragedy, which is a twist on being involved in any kind of 9/11, because I don't think the terrorists were thinking we would be doing such things. I don't think that the terrorists' hope were for me to say I am a better person because of 9/11. That's not what they wanted. Not at all. And my friend Sonia Agron, who is a docent at the 9/11 Tribute Museum, she asked me in 2016, do you want to go to Gander with us? A group of us are going to Newfoundland on a tour of gratitude. And hold on one second. I'm gonna have a tissue so I don't. Okay, thank you. She and I both we volunteer at the big museum, at the National September 11th Museum. We volunteer at both places. And a group of people from that museum, just regular people, you know, not survivors or first responders, just regular people who volunteer at the museum, put together this trip to Newfoundland. And I had heard about Gander. I had read the book, The Day the World Came to Town. And I was like, sure, I'd love to go. And there we were for the 15th anniversary, dealing with feeling guilty about not being in New York, but happy to be in a space where 9/11 is actually celebrated. That's not the right way to put it. That the acts that these people, things that these people did because of 9/11 are celebrated. Let's put it that way. 9/11 is not celebrated, but what they did there on and after 9/11 is celebrated. So it was a little weird. They're a little kind, a little kinder than what this New Yorker's used to. Matter of fact, these earrings are from a young lady I met when I was screeched in. She had them on and I said, oh my God, I love your earrings, because I love any hanging earrings. And she's like, oh, you want them? I'm like, no. I don't want your earrings, lady. No. And she's like, no. You can have them. I'm like, no, I do not want your earrings. And she's like, no, you must have them. And she took them off her ears and gave them to me. And I thought, all right, it's a little strange. It's a little strange. I'm not gonna lie. I graciously said thank you. I put them in my ears, took my earrings off. And that was the first really weird thing that happened to me, and not the last, even to today. There's a level of kindness there that is not found in your average human. And it can be overwhelming in a good way. That's where I met Kelly during my Screechin', and Beulah and Oz, and a lot of people that now know who I'm talking about. This is before Come From Away ever came out. It was a very quick trip. I think it was 4 nights, 5 days. We spoke to students, we spoke to firefighters. It was an amazing experience, and just like Japan brought a usefulness to my being a survivor. Like, I used my 9/11 experience in a good way in Japan to share my feelings and my experiences with somebody who may have needed it. This part of my 9/11 story is a part that totally blew me away, because it's all good. Like with Japan, there's sadness, there's, death, unfortunately, and there's good stuff, the regrowth, the growing, the building up your life again. This in Newfoundland is like, wowee. It was a whirlwind. And somehow by the time I left Newfoundland, they were thanking me. And I'm like, I'm confused about this, because I'm here to thank you. Why are you thanking me? And most of them were just like, oh my God, you were there. And I get that. You're meeting somebody who was actually involved in 9/11. That's what happens when I do a tour. I get that. But that's not why I'm here. And I'm a survivor, but not through any fault of my own. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time with the right person, my sister. Like I did nothing. I did nothing but listen to my sister. That's it. That's the only thing I can own. And then I made friends with these wonderful, lovely people that I'm still friends with, especially Kelly. That was September 2016. February 2017, a play called Come From Away opened. And Sonia, again, she's a wonderful person and very organized. She's like, you want to go see this play? And she put a group of us together from the Tribute Museum. I brought my best friend, and she came with her husband and my friend Anthony and other people who volunteer at the Tribute Museum, all 9/11 related people. My best friend's a 9/11 survivor too. And I said, you listen to me. If they start singing and dancing about 9/11, I'm leaving. Like, nobody should be singing and dancing about 9/11. No. And we sat through the play, and the actors knew we were in the audience, and I now know they were like, uh-oh, how's this gonna go? Because it was a brand new play, like it hadn't even officially opened yet. I think it was February 17th. And I was crying and laughing and crying and laughing, as you know. And I did not leave. Of course I didn't leave. It was the most amazing experience. And I thought, there are people singing about 9/11 in a way that is respectful to those of us that were not having such a good day that day. And yet sharing the exact kindness that we saw that day, even in New York, only for one day, really. And we stayed after the play for a talk back, and the actors were just so like amazingly giving with their feelings and their thoughts about portraying these people from Gander. And I was a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit like, I know Oz, I know Beulah. You know, like that's kind of weird that you see people you know on Broadway. Like I'm your everyday New Yorker. When you go to a Broadway show, it's not people you know. And I was like, that's exactly how they are. They're really like that. Like I want to tell the person sitting to me, you know, the people really like that. And fast forward to the opening night, I became very good friends with Kelly like that, right? Just one trip. She came for the opening night, and I got to see the play opening night with all the real people in the audience. And I was like, I was starstruck. Like, oh my God, like Bonnie's here, the real Bonnie, right? Kelly's here. Everybody's here from Gander, and the emotion was just overwhelmingly wonderful. And I was like, I'm here because of that really, really messed up day. And I'm pretty lucky. And then it only gets better because then the following August, I went to Gander for my birthday. I said, I'm going on vacation. I'm going to see my friends in Gander. And, you know, got to see everybody again. And then the following September 11th, I went for September 11th because I thought, I think I'd rather be there than here. September 11th is really difficult in New York City. And the time frame, like right at the end of August, that's when my stomach starts to hurt. That's when, you know, the Band-Aid is pulled off and, you know, there's this oozing pain and hurt that there's no escaping it. It's on TV, it's in the street, it's everywhere. And it's not that I can escape it. I can't because 9/11 is inside me. But I won't go down to the plaza on 9/11. It's just the collective sadness is too much for me. So when I'm home on 9/11, I'm usually with my niece. We'll go to the 9/11 memorial here in Staten Island. I'll most certainly have a drink and toast to the moms in heaven, but I don't really want to be, it's too hard. And so the next best place to be is Gander. And that's where I was. And I went to the Appleton Memorial service, and Durham asked me to speak, and it was emotional, but it was good. It was good for me to be able to say, I feel guilty about not being in New York, but I feel much better being here. Like I own it. It is what it is. And then I didn't go in 2019 because 9/11 was on a Wednesday, which meant I had to take the whole week off because, like I told you, it's very hard to get there. And I regret it, of course, because in 2020, I couldn't go because of the pandemic. But in 2019, my niece said, well, if you're not going to Gander, why don't we just go see the play? That's a great idea. So on 9/11, we went to see Come From Away. And it was, of course, 10 times the emotion. It was just wonderful. And I got to go backstage and thank everybody, including David and Irene, for bringing this part of what is now my 9/11 story into my life, because it's a big part of my story now. And even everything I do 9/11 related becomes part of my 9/11 story. And that is, 33 times. It's a big part of my 9/11 story. Come From Away, and the people in it, and the people who are portrayed in it. Even the fact that Kevin Turf, the real Kevin Turf, is now my dear friend and brother. He wrote a book called Channel of Peace, which I'm not sure if you read or not. If you haven't, okay. And he wanted somebody to write something in the back of the book. And so he called his friends in Gander, and somehow that made its way to me. I read the book, never met him, I know who he is because of the play, but never met him. And I wrote something, and then we became friends, and now we're really good friends. We've been to Dublin together to see Come From Away. He stays at my house when he's in New York because he moved back to Texas, and he asked me to be on the board of Pay It Forward 9/11, which is an honor. He's from the play, he does this Pay It Forward 9/11, and he officially 501(c), not for profit organization, set up a board and asked me to be on it. And we have a meeting tonight, and it's been such an interesting layer to my 9/11 story to take the fact that I was in the wrong place in the wrong time with the right person and make it into something that is who I am today. Like, for me to say I'm on the board of Pay It Forward 9/11, like I'm doing, or at least I'm trying to do good things with this bad day. And it's a big part of reaching out all around the world for people to pay it forward because of those actions that day. And I this year was like the big year, right? The 20th anniversary. But one of the things I said in my speech that I gave at the ecumenical service in Gander was this 2010, 5, it didn't matter what, it doesn't matter how many years it is. It's the same for me. The only year that was huge was the first year, because we made it through the first year. Like, I survived through a year of the world being the way it is, which is now normal for me. But every year is the same. And the media, of course, makes a big deal of it because it's the 20th year. I can say it's the same because I didn't lose anybody on 9/11. I don't know a single person that was killed on 9/11. So I don't get to say, I wonder what it would be like if he or she were here, or he or she would be 50 now, and because 20 years has passed. I can't say that. And I'm, believe me, lucky and blessed to not be able to say that. But the feelings of 9/11, the anniversary, is always the same for me. And it's not good. It's not good. And so being in Gander this year was good, but it was lonely because of COVID. Nobody really went. There were a few people there, but there were no New Yorkers there. And I was alone. I was alone in my 9/11 experience. And it was hard, but still rather be in Gander than New York on 9/11. It's just a better place to be. And when Kelly asked me to speak at the ecumenical service, I was like, really? Somehow I think if the plain people were there, and even the people that are in Come From Away, they would have been the ones speaking. But I was there, so I did that speech, and it was not easy to be up there. But again, I count my blessings because I was in a place where 9/11 was a good thing. And I hope to be there again next year. And a year after, and a year after that. And maybe one day you and I will meet there.
Hope so.
Yeah, and so that's my 9/11 story. And believe it or not, look at the time. I cut that short. There's so much more to say about 9/11. So many other good things, and good things, like not too many like negative things, which puts me in a category of I am one lucky survivor.